I hosted my 70th birthday party. No one showed up. That same day, my daughter-in-law posted family photos from a resort with her parents. I didn't cry, I just smiled. And when they got home, I handed them the envelope that changed everything. My grandson's DNA test results. It was nearly 8:00 p.m. The buttercream frosting had started to sag. The candles flickered on the kitchen table, 9 small ones and a single tall gold taper in the center. 70. Not that anyone asked. I had made the cake myself. Old family recipe buttermilk, vanilla, a touch of lemon zest, the kind you only make when you expect company. I had even set the table with linen napkins, crystal glasses, my late husband's favorite teacups, all for a dinner no one came to. The roast was cold. The potatoes had hardened at the edges. I had reheated the gravy twice, just in case. At 5:00 p.m. I straightened the silverware. At 6:00 p.m. I checked the doorbell. At 7:00 I told myself there had probably been traffic. By 8:00, I could not lie to myself anymore. I picked up the cordless phone and dialed Richard, my only son. He picked up on the third ring, sounded distracted, then irritated. What? You're calling again? I cleared my throat. I was just wondering if maybe you forgot what day. He cut me off. Oh, right. The birthday of the house witch. Then he chuckled. 70. You should be sleeping underground by now instead of wasting our electricity. The line went dead. I sat back in the chair. The gold candle still burned. I did not cry. I did not move. My knees ached, but I stayed where I was, looking around the table, each place set with care, each plate empty. The silence rang louder than any insult ever could. I turned off the kitchen lights one by one, left the cake untouched, and picked up the envelope from my handbag. The one with 2 sets of initials. I waited, because they were coming home from the resort tomorrow, and I was done being wallpaper. I turned on the TV just for the noise. It synced automatically to my phone, and Facebook popped open. Melissa's profile, the last person I wanted to see. Her latest post loaded across the flat screen. Family getaway Gatlinburg weekend, 84 photos. Her Richard, little Sammy, and her parents. Tanned, smiling, wine glasses in hand, matching swimsuits, designer sunglasses, coordinated outfits like some magazine spread. The caption read, 3 generations, family that matters, no mention of me. No call, no text, no seat at the table. Not even a name in the tags. In one photo, Sammy sat on Melissa's father's lap, both laughing. In another, Richard leaned against a balcony rail, arms around his wife and in-laws. I looked at that picture longer than I should have. Not because I was jealous, but because I wanted to see if he looked happy. He didn't. I knew that balcony, they'd been there before, just not with me. Never with me. Melissa never called me by my name. Not Mom. Thompson. Just snide little titles that sliced deeper than she knew. You just hang around like bad wallpaper, she sneered once while folding laundry I had washed. Always there, always peeling at the corners. That one stayed with me, but it wasn't the worst. Once, when Sammy was a toddler with a fever, I picked him up because he needed comfort. He clung to me, calling out in baby speak. Melissa snatched him from my arms like I was poison. He calls me Mama, not some withering old hag playing grandma. She looked me dead in the eye as she said it, her voice sweet but her words venom. When Richard lost his job years ago, I used part of my late husband's pension to help them put a down payment on the house. My name was never added to the deed, though it was my money. When I asked Melissa gently whether we should update the paperwork, she said, "You didn't buy this house. You bought the right to crash here." Crash. That word hit harder than most. Like I was a car wreck, a temporary mess they had to drive around. But I wasn't temporary. I was there when Sammy was born, sitting in the hallway with lukewarm coffee while her mother got to be in the delivery room. I was the one who rocked him at 3:00 a.m. when Melissa was too drained. I was the one who took him to urgent care when he had croup, who held him while he vomited on my blouse, who sang, "You Are My Sunshine," on repeat because no one else remembered the second verse. Yet he didn't look like Richard. That thought crept in slowly, a flicker at first. Sammy had deep, set hazel eyes. No one in our family had them. His ears were wide at the base, his skin tone warmer, with a mole on his neck that I knew wasn't from our bloodline. I brushed it off for a while. Children can take after distant relatives. But then came the school paperwork. Richard was O, like me. Melissa claimed to be A. I began writing things down. Not on a computer. I didn't trust those. In a spiral notebook I kept in my knitting basket. Birth dates, medical notes, phrases Sammy repeated that Melissa said she'd never taught him. I wasn't accusing. I was observing. Melissa once caught me staring too long at a photo of Richard as a boy. She smirked. Still trying to find the resemblance. Let it go, Grandma. Genes skip losers. That night, I cried into my pillow for the first time in years. Not because I felt hurt, but because I felt used. I wasn't raising a grandson. I was raising a question. It was a Friday afternoon when Richard called from work, sounding tired but grateful. Mom, could you pick Sammy up from school today? Melissa has an appointment and I won't be home until 6. Of course, I said yes. I always did. When I opened the front door with my spare key, something felt off. Too quiet. I headed upstairs to put away Sammy's backpack, and that's when I heard it. Soft laughter, heavy breathing, the creak of a mattress from the master bedroom. I froze at the top of the stairs, my heart pounding. Then I heard a voice, low, unfamiliar, male, and Melissa's giggle. My hand trembled as I pushed open the door. She didn't scream right away. She gasped, her eyes locking with mine. She was tangled in the sheets with a man I'd never seen. Tattoos snaking across his chest, down one arm. Get the hell out, she screamed, scrambling for the blanket. I stood still. The man bolted to the bathroom, muttering, "You said no one would be home?" Melissa jumped out of bed and lunged toward me. "Don't you dare say a word," she hissed, her hands shoving my chest hard. I stumbled backward into the hallway, my hip crashing into the wall. I caught myself just before I fell completely, but pain sparked through my side like lightning. She bent over me, her face inches from mine. "Say a word and I'll say you slipped because you're senile. Who do you think they'll believe? Me, a mother, or a washed-up hag who cries over forgotten birthdays?" My mouth stayed shut, but my eyes didn't blink. They recorded everything. That night, after they left for dinner, Melissa claiming she needed air after such a stressful week, I discovered something. The hallway security camera, a small motion sensor unit Richard had installed years ago, connected to a cloud account he'd never deleted. It had a perfect view of the upstairs hallway, including Melissa rushing out of the bedroom naked under a towel, darting into the bathroom with a bundle of sheets. I opened the app on my tablet and there it was, a 90-second clip of Melissa dumping linens into the bathtub, then returning with what looked like a used condom in a plastic bag, spraying air freshener wildly. She didn't know the camera still worked. I downloaded the footage and saved it to 2 drives. Then I went back to the kitchen, poured myself a cup of cold tea, and stared at the calendar. I was done counting the years they forgot me. Now I would start counting evidence. I waited until the house was empty. From Sammy's room, I plucked a few strands of hair from his pillow and placed them gently into a plastic bag. From the bathroom, I took Richard's toothbrush. The green one he always used. The one Melissa hated because it looked too cheap. That week, I mailed the samples to a private lab 2 towns over. Not a big national chain, not one that would ask questions. I used a fake name, bought a money order with cash, wrote in block letters, "Confidential. Do not call." Mail only. 3 weeks later the envelope arrived, plain white, no logo. I sat at the dining room table, the same one I had set for my 70th birthday. The letter was short, just a simple statement at the bottom. No biological relationship found between sample A and sample B. I read it again, then a 3rd time. My hands trembled, not with shock, but with confirmation. A strange kind of relief, like a door that had been creaking for years had finally shut. Sammy was not Richard's child. I printed 2 copies of the report. One I tucked away in a locked drawer beneath my birth certificate and Richard's military flag. The other I folded into a thick ivory envelope, sealed it with a wax stamp I hadn't used since my husband's funeral, and wrote in black inks, "Only open if they forget." Then I placed it in my handbag and waited. The garage door creaked open just past noon on Sunday. Melissa walked in first, sunglasses perched high like a crown, a fresh tan coloring her skin. Behind her was Richard, lugging a suitcase. Sammy stumbled in last, dragging a stuffed bear with new resort tags. Melissa tossed her beach bag on the floor, then glanced at me with a smirk. "Oh, you're here. Hope your party for one wasn't too depressing. I saw this adorable ad for senior socials at the rec center. You should look into it." I didn't respond. I rose slowly, retrieved the envelope from the hallway table, and held it out. "Richard, please open this." He looked puzzled, then annoyed. "Now what is it?" "Another guilt trip. Just open it. It's not for clarity." He tore the envelope open. His eyes skimmed the first few lines. "This says, he's not my son." Melissa lunged. "You had no right," she screamed, trying to snatch the paper. "You went behind my back. You're just a bitter old woman with too much time." I looked at her, not with anger, not even with pity, just with the wariness of knowing too much. I had every right. I changed his diapers when you wouldn't get up. I rocked him through fever nights. I sang him to sleep. I raised your boy like he was mine. And I carried the truth alone 'cause I didn't want to humiliate my son. Richard's face turned pale. His hands dropped to his sides. The letter slipped and landed on the floor like a confession. Mum. His voice cracked. Long have you known? Since 3 weeks ago. But I've known something was wrong for far longer. His blood type, his eyes, his laugh. It was never yours. I can't believe this, he whispered. Melissa's face contorted. You're gonna believe her after everything I've given you? You think I cheated? You just admitted it? I said, still calm. And you did more than pretend. You lived a lie and dragged my son into it. You dragged Sammy into it. You just want to tear this family apart because you're jealous. Because no one celebrated your stupid birthday. Enough, Melissa. Richard's voice was low, firm. You lied to me for 7 years, and you made her feel like garbage while doing it. Shissy is garbage. You would be nowhere if I hadn't pushed you. She is my mother. Richard snapped. And I let you treat her like furniture. No, like a ghost. I stepped forward. You threatened me once, Melissa. Told me no one would believe the word of an old woman, and now he does too. Melissa turned at the door, her face red and trembling. This isn't over. You're right, I replied. It's just beginning. And Richard picked up the phone. The investigation moved quickly. Melissa had created false documentation listing Richard as Sammy's father, using it to claim family medical insurance tax benefits and supplemental childcare stipends during Richard's unemployment years. The total came to over 18 zlotys. When confronted, she confessed, not out of remorse, but strategy. Her lawyer tried to argue for a reduced sentence on grounds of postpartum instability. It didn't work. Richard filed for divorce. Full custody of Sammy was awarded to the biological father, a man named Daniel Harper, who'd been told by Melissa that she'd lost the baby. A cruel lie that robbed him of 5 years of fatherhood. The custody hearing was quiet, respectful. 2 men trying to do right by a child who'd been lied to by the only woman he called Mama. When the judge asked about household ownership, the truth emerged. My name had always been on the deed. Melissa had once claimed I was just renting a room by guilt, but the paperwork said otherwise. The house was finally, legally, emotionally mine. The first thing I did was change the locks. Not out of fear, but finality. Then I hired cleaners. We scrubbed every surface, replaced the worn carpet, and painted the walls a soft almond white. I took down every photo that featured lies and hung new ones. My husband in uniform, Richard as a boy fishing on the lake, my own mother holding a pie with a crooked smile. Photos that felt like truth. Richard came by the next Sunday, knocked even though he had a key. Thought you might want some company, he said, holding up a bag of groceries. We sat in the backyard that evening, the air thick with June honeysuckle. I poured sweet tea. He sat in the same chair his father used to read the paper in. I still think about him, Richard said, staring into the garden. So do I. I'm trying to be better. I know I was cruel. I know I ignored things I should have seen. You were surviving. Now you're awake. Sammy came by later that week with Daniel. The boy looked confused, quiet. I knelt to his level and said, You've grown so much? He nodded. Do you remember the muffins we used to make? He smiled a little. When they left, Sammy turned on the porch and waved. Not much, just a flick of the hand, but it was enough. 1 year later, the house felt different. Not because it had changed, but because I had. The walls no longer listened for footsteps they feared. The kitchen no longer hesitated to boil water for one. And the front porch finally held laughter again. Richard had met someone. Her name was Elena, and she came with a little girl named Leela, 5 years old, full of questions, curls, and crayons. They visited for dinner on a Saturday in spring. I made roast chicken and sweet potatoes. Elena brought lemon pie. Leela wandered the living room, her wide eyes taking in the photos. She paused in front of my wedding picture, then turned and looked at me. Is that you? She asked, pointing. Yes, sweetheart. That was a long time ago. She tilted her head. You look like a movie star. I laughed, a real laugh, one I hadn't let myself feel in years. When dinner was ready, Leela pulled out a chair next to mine, then stopped and looked up. Grandma, can I sit next to you? I froze. It was the worded grandma. She said it like it belonged to me. Not forced, not coaxed, but because she saw me. Yes, baby. You already did something special. You saw me? Later that night, when they left, Richard lingered at the door. She really likes you. I like her too. He reached for my hand. Mom, thank you for everything. I didn't say anything, just squeezed his fingers. The moon was out again that night, but this time it didn't feel like a reminder of what was missing. It felt like a promise of something healed.